Hello there, and welcome to Midnight Science. I'm so glad you found your way here, because tonight we're leaving the noise behind. Your day was what it was, and now it's time to let it go. This moment is yours. There's nothing to rush toward, nothing to solve, just the gentle unfolding of wonder. Tonight, we're exploring rain. Not merely precipitation or weather patterns, but the secret language spoken between sky and earth, the ancient rhythm that has shaped civilizations and whispered through every era of life on this planet. We'll wander through the science of storms and the poetry of puddles, discovering how each raindrop carries stories millions of years in the making. Some insights might surprise you. Others may settle in your mind like dew on morning grass. And if these quiet explorations help you find peace, consider liking and subscribing. It helps others discover this sanctuary of calm, one restless heart at a time. Also, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. It's always wonderful to see how these videos bring people together from all around the world. Now, let your shoulders drop, let the world fade, and let's begin. A raindrop falls at about the speed you walk. When you watch rain fall, it seems to plummet quickly from the sky. But a typical raindrop, medium-sized and round, falls at roughly 9 miles per hour. That's a comfortable walking pace, a gentle stroll through the air. It doesn't plunge, it drifts. The reason is air resistance. As a raindrop forms and begins to fall, the air pushes back against it, creating drag that limits its speed. Within seconds, the drop reaches what's called terminal velocity, the point where gravity's pull and air's resistance balance perfectly. Smaller droplets fall even slower, sometimes barely faster than a leisurely drift. Larger drops, the heavy ones that tap loudly on rooftops, can reach 15 or 20 miles per hour, but never much faster. So when you stand in the rain, you're being touched by water that has wandered down from the clouds at the pace of a quiet walk, soft, unhurried, and impossibly gentle. Rain smells the way it does because of bacteria. There's a word for that earthy, sweet smell that rises after rain touches dry ground. Petrichor. The scent comes not from the water itself, but from something hidden in the soil. Certain bacteria, especially one called streptomyces, live in the earth and produce a compound known as geosmin. When rain hits the ground, it releases this molecule into the air and we breathe it in. To humans, geosmin smells like damp earth, fresh and ancient all at once. We're extraordinarily sensitive to it, able to detect even the tiniest amounts. Some scientists believe our ancestors learned to associate this scent with water and safety, a signal that rain had come and life could continue. So when you smell rain, you're not just smelling water, you're smelling life itself, microscopic and patient, waiting beneath the surface to be awakened. Raindrops are not shaped like tears. If you've ever drawn a raindrop, you probably gave it a teardrop shape, narrow at the top and rounded at the bottom. But real raindrops don't look like that. Small raindrops are nearly perfect spheres held together by surface tension. The water molecules clinging tightly to each other in a round, smooth shape. As drops grow larger, air resistance changes their form. The bottom flattens as air pushes up against it, and the top remains rounded. The largest raindrops resemble tiny hamburger buns, puffy on top, flat below. If a drop gets too big, it becomes unstable and breaks apart into smaller droplets. So the raindrop you imagine, that classic teardrop silhouette, doesn't really exist in nature. Rain falls as spheres and buns, soft geometries shaped by physics and air. Some rain never reaches the ground. In dry, hot climates, rain can fall from clouds and simply vanish before touching the earth. This phenomenon is called virga. You can see it sometimes, long grey streaks trailing beneath a cloud, curtains of water suspended in the air. But the rain evaporates as it falls, stolen back into the atmosphere by heat and dryness. Virga is bittersweet, a promise of water that never arrives. In deserts and arid regions, it's a common sight, ghost rain that drifts and fades. The air is so thirsty, it drinks the rain before the ground can. And yet, even though virga doesn't wet the soil, it still cools the air, still shifts the weather. Rain, it seems, doesn't need to land to matter. Sometimes the gesture alone is enough. The sound of rain is actually thousands of tiny impacts. When you hear rain on a roof or a window, what you're hearing is percussion. Countless tiny collisions happening all at once. Each drop strikes a surface and releases a small burst of sound. The frequency depends on the size of the drop, the material it hits, and the speed of impact. Heavier rain on metal creates a loud, insistent rhythm. Light drizzle on leaves sounds softer, almost whispered. But there's more. Rain also makes sound when it hits water, puddles, ponds, rivers. Each drop creates a brief splash, trapping tiny bubbles of air underwater. As these bubbles oscillate and collapse, they produce high-frequency sounds, some beyond what we can hear. So rain is never truly silent. Even when it seems quiet, it hums with invisible music, a symphony composed by water meeting world. The oldest rainfall we know of happened over 2 billion years ago. Rain is ancient, far older than forests or animals, or even breathable air. Evidence from ancient rock formations suggests that liquid water fell from the sky over 2 billion years ago, perhaps even earlier. Back then, Earth's atmosphere was very different, filled with methane, ammonia, and carbon dioxide, but lacking oxygen. The sky may have been orange or hazy, and the rain itself might have been slightly acidic. Still, it fell, and in falling, it shaped mountains, carved valleys, and began the slow work of weathering stone into soil. Rain has been part of Earth's story since the beginning, a constant companion through ice ages and warm periods, through extinction events and the rise of life. Every drop that touches you today carries that lineage, water falling as it has for eons, persistent and unchanging. Rainforests create their own rain. In the heart of a rainforest, water moves in a cycle so tightly woven it almost breathes. Trees pull moisture from the soil through their roots and release it through their leaves in a process called transpiration. This water vapor rises into the air, cools, and condenses into clouds. Then it falls again as rain, feeding the same trees that released it. The Amazon rainforest recycles so much of its own water that it generates nearly half of its rainfall internally. The forest doesn't just receive rain, it makes it. This self-sustaining loop is fragile. When too many trees are lost, the cycle weakens. Less moisture rises, fewer clouds form, and rainfall declines. The forest, in a sense, begins to forget how to rain. But where it remains healthy, it hums with this ancient rhythm, water rising and falling in an endless, gentle dance. You can smell rain before it arrives. Have you ever stepped outside and known, without looking at the sky, that rain was coming. That faint metallic scent, sharp and clean, is ozone. During a thunderstorm, lightning splits oxygen molecules in the air, creating ozone, a molecule made of 3 oxygen atoms instead of 2. Downdrafts from the storm carry this ozone toward the ground, and we smell it before the rain arrives. It's not the only warning. Plants, sensing changes in humidity and air pressure, sometimes release oils and compounds into the air before a storm. Combined with ozone and the faint scent of wet earth carried on the wind, the air becomes rich with anticipation. Rain announces itself quietly, not with sound, but with scent. And if you're paying attention, you'll know it's coming before the first drop falls. Rain can fall from a cloudless sky. It sounds impossible, but it happens. In certain conditions, rain can evaporate from a cloud high in the atmosphere and be carried horizontally by strong winds. If the air below is moist enough, that rain can reform and fall from what appears to be clear sky. These are called phantom rains or sun showers, rain falling while the sun still shines. In some cultures, sun showers carry folklore. They say a fox is getting married, or the devil is beating his wife, or angels are crying. But the science is simpler and just as beautiful. Water, lifted and carried, finds its way down even when the clouds seem far away. Rain doesn't always need a storm. Sometimes it just needs the right conditions and a little patience. The heaviest rainstorm ever recorded dropped over 6 feet in one day. In 1966, on the island of Réunion in the Indian Ocean, a tropical cyclone unleashed an almost unimaginable amount of rain. In just 24 hours, over 6 feet of water fell from the sky. That's enough to submerge a tall person, enough to fill swimming pools, enough to reshape the land itself. Rivers swelled, hillsides gave way. The storm, named Cyclone Denise, set a record that still stands. Extreme rainfall events like this are rare but devastating. They remind us that rain, for all its gentleness, can also be a force of overwhelming power. Water has weight. It carves, it crushes, it moves earth and stone. And yet, most of the time, it simply taps softly on your roof, content to fall one drop at a time, slow and steady, the way it has always fallen. Raindrops can fall at different times from the same cloud. When you see a rain cloud, you might imagine all the droplets forming and falling together. But inside that cloud, droplets are in different stages of life. Some are just beginning to coalesce, tiny and light. Others have grown heavy and are ready to fall. Still others are being held aloft by updrafts, circulating inside the cloud, waiting for the right moment. So rain from a single cloud arrives in waves, scattered and irregular. Some drops fall early, testing the ground. Others follow minutes or even hours later. And within that staggered descent is a kind of patience, a slow release of water held in the sky. A cloud doesn't empty all at once. It offers its rain gradually, gently, like letting go of something precious piece by piece. Plants open their leaves to catch more rain. When rain begins, some plants respond in real time. Leaves adjust their angles, stems shift slightly, roots prepare to absorb. Certain species have evolved to maximize the amount of rain they capture, funneling water toward their base or spreading wide to catch every drop. Desert plants are especially clever. Some have grooves or channels that guide rainwater directly to their roots. Others, like the resurrection plant, curl up when dry and unfurl when wet, changing shape to meet the rain. It's not conscious, but it's responsive. a quiet conversation between plant and sky, one offering water, the other reaching up to receive it. In this way, rain is never just falling. It's being welcomed. Rain once fell for 2 million years straight, around 232 million years ago, during a period called the Carnian pluvial episode. Earth experienced what may have been the longest rainstorm in its history. For over 1 million years, possibly 2, rain fell almost continuously across large portions of the planet. The cause is still debated. Likely massive volcanic eruptions released gases that warmed the atmosphere and triggered intense, prolonged rainfall. This wasn't a gentle drizzle. It was a deluge that reshaped ecosystems, flooded plains, and created vast shallow seas. When it finally ended, the world had changed. New species emerged. Dinosaurs, previously minor players, began to dominate. The rain, in its persistence, rewrote the story of life on Earth. And in the deep layers of ancient rock, traces of that endless storm still remain, silent and patient, waiting to be read. Rain helps cool the planet. When sunlight heats the Earth's surface, energy builds up, warming land, water, and air. Rain acts as a release valve. As water evaporates from oceans, lakes, and soil, it carries heat energy with it into the atmosphere. When that vapor condenses into clouds and falls as rain, some of that energy is released high above the ground, cooling the surface below. Rain also cools by direct contact. When it falls on hot pavement, dry soil, or sun-baked rock, it absorbs heat and carries it away. This is why the air feels fresher after a storm, why temperatures drop, why the world seems to exhale. Rain is not just water. It's a courier of balance, moving heat from where it's abundant to where it's needed, quietly regulating the climate one drop at a time. Some animals can predict rain days in advance. Birds fly lower before a storm. Ants build higher mounds. Cows lie down in fields. Frogs call more loudly. For centuries, people have noticed that animals seem to know when rain is coming, often long before the first cloud appears. They're not psychic, they're sensitive. Animals detect changes in air pressure, humidity, and even electromagnetic fields that precede storms. Bees return to their hives. Fish swim deeper. Spiders strengthen their webs or take them down entirely. Each species has its own way of preparing, its own early warning system honed by evolution. They don't see the forecast. They feel it in the air, in their bodies, in the subtle shifts that announce water's approach. And in their quiet adjustments, they teach us to pay attention, to notice what's coming before it arrives. A single rainstorm can contain billions of gallons of water. Look up at a storm cloud, dark and swollen, drifting slowly overhead. Inside that cloud, suspended in the air, are billions upon billions of gallons of water. A typical thunderstorm might hold around 275 million gallons. Larger systems, hurricanes or monsoons, can carry trillions. That water doesn't fall all at once. It's released gradually, sometimes over hours, sometimes days, but the sheer volume is staggering. Imagine an ocean lifted into the sky, held there by air and temperature, then gently lowered back to Earth. That's what a rainstorm is, a temporary suspension of gravity's pull. A pause in water's journey from sky to ground. And when it falls, it nourishes, it fills, it flows. Water returning home. Rain falls differently on every continent. In the Amazon, rain arrives in afternoon downpours, heavy and sudden, drumming on the canopy. In the Sahara, it might not fall for years, and when it does, it's brief and precious. In the Pacific Northwest, rain drifts down in soft, persistent mist that lasts for days. In India, the monsoon sweeps in with wind and thunder, transforming dry earth into green abundance. Each region has its own relationship with rain, its own rhythm and intensity. Tropical rainforests receive over 400 inches a year. Deserts get less than 10. Temperate zones find balance in between. But everywhere, rain shapes culture, language, and life. It determines what grows, where people settle, and how they live. Rain is not universal in form, but in presence. Wherever you are, it has touched your story. Rainwater is naturally soft. If you've ever collected rainwater in a bucket, you might have noticed it feels different from tap water. Softer, lighter, gentler on the skin. That's because rainwater is naturally soft, meaning it lacks the dissolved minerals, calcium, magnesium, that make water hard. Rain forms from pure evaporated water, condensing in clouds without picking up minerals along the way. This softness makes rainwater ideal for washing. It lathers soap easily, rinses cleanly, and leaves no residue. Many people prefer it for watering plants, since it lacks the salts and chemicals often found in treated water. In some parts of the world, rainwater is still collected and used for drinking, bathed, and cooking. It's the purest form of water nature offers, skyborne and untouched, soft as the clouds it fell from. The longest dry spell on record lasted over 14 years. In the Atacama Desert in Chile, one of the driest places on Earth, some weather stations have recorded no measurable rainfall for over 14 consecutive years. Not a drop. The desert sits in a rain shadow, trapped between mountains and ocean currents that strip moisture from the air before it can reach land. But even here, life persists. Microbes live in the soil, waiting. Lichens cling to rocks, drawing moisture from fog. When rain finally comes, even decades later, the desert blooms briefly, explosively, covering the ground in flowers that have waited lifetimes for a single drink. Rain, it seems, is not just water. It's a promise. And even in the driest places, that promise is kept, eventually, patiently, in its own quiet time. Rain has a taste most people think of rain as tasteless, just water falling from the sky. But rain does have a flavor, subtle and variable. It depends on what the rain passes through on its way down. In clean, rural areas, rain tastes fresh and slightly sweet. In cities, it might carry a faint metallic tang from pollution and particles in the air. Near the ocean, rain can taste slightly salty from sea spray carried inland. Rain also picks up airborne dust, pollen, and organic compounds. In forests, it may carry hints of pine or earth. After a volcanic eruption, it can taste sulfuric. Every rainstorm is different, flavored by the sky it fell through and the air it touched. So when you catch rain on your tongue, you're tasting the atmosphere, a snapshot of the world dissolved in water. Rain once helped end a war. In 1783, during the American Revolutionary War, a sudden and violent rainstorm halted what could have been a catastrophic battle. George Washington's army and British forces were positioned for conflict near Newburgh, New York. When torrential rain turned the roads into rivers of mud and made movement impossible. The storm lasted for days, drenching both sides and forcing a standstill. By the time the rain stopped, tensions had cooled, and negotiations began that eventually led to peace. The storm didn't end the war on its own, but it created a pause, a moment where violence became impossible and dialogue became necessary. Rain in its indifference, had intervened. Sometimes water doesn't just shape landscapes, it shapes history. Rain can be used to generate electricity. When raindrops hit certain surfaces, they release a tiny amount of energy. Scientists have developed materials that can capture this energy and convert it into electricity. It's not much, just microwatts per drop. But in a heavy storm, millions of drops fall every second. Researchers are exploring rooftops, walkways, and other surfaces that could harvest rain's kinetic energy. It's a gentle technology, one that doesn't resist or redirect rain, but simply welcomes it and borrows a bit of its motion. In the future, rain might not only water our gardens and fill our rivers, it might also power our lights, charge our devices, and remind us that energy is everywhere, falling softly from the sky, waiting to be noticed. Deserts bloom after rare rains in the harshest deserts, where rain is rare and survival seems impossible. Something extraordinary happens when water finally arrives. Seeds that have lain dormant for years, sometimes decades, suddenly awaken. Within days, the desert floor erupts in color. Wildflowers, grasses, and shrubs spreading across the sand like a living quilt. This phenomenon, called a super bloom, is breathtaking and brief. The flowers bloom, set seed, and die within weeks, sometimes days. But in that short window, they attract pollinators, feed animals, and scatter seeds for the next generation. Then the desert returns to stillness, waiting once again. Rain, even rare and fleeting, is enough. Life knows how to wait, and it knows how to seize the moment when water comes. Rain shapes mountains. Mountains seem permanent, timeless monuments of stone. But rain is their sculptor. Over millions of years, rain erodes peaks, carves valleys, and wears stone into soil. Each drop, tiny and soft, carries a grain of rock with it as it flows downhill. Multiply that by billions of drops, trillions of storms, and you begin to see the power. Water seeps into cracks, freezes and expands, breaking stone apart. Rain dissolves minerals, weakens bonds, and reshapes surfaces. The Grand Canyon, the fjords of Norway, the river valleys of every continent, all were carved by water falling from the sky and flowing over earth. Rain is patient. It doesn't rush. It simply falls again and again, and slowly, gently, the mountains bow. Some clouds never produce rain. Not all clouds carry water to the ground. Some drift across the sky, white and fluffy, dissolving before they can release a single drop. These are fair weather clouds, too thin or too warm to gather enough moisture. Others, high-altitude cirrus clouds, are made of ice crystals so small and light they never fall. They simply float, catching the sunlight and painting the sky. But even clouds that don't rain still matter. They reflect sunlight, shade the ground, and influence temperature. They inspire poetry, paintings, and daydreams. Clouds remind us that not everything needs to arrive or complete its cycle to have meaning. Sometimes just being there, drifting quietly overhead, is enough. Rain is older than the mountains it falls on. The water in every raindrop is ancient, recycled endlessly through Earth's water cycle. The same molecules that fall today may have once filled ancient seas, flowed through dinosaur rivers, or been drunk by early humans. Water doesn't age. It simply moves, evaporating, condensing, falling, flowing, and rising again. Mountains, by contrast, are young. The Himalayas, the tallest range on Earth, are only around 50 million years old. The Rockies are younger still. but the water that falls on them has been cycling through Earth's systems for over 4 billion years. So when rain touches stone, the ancient touches the new, water that predates continents meeting rock, that is still rising, still forming, still reaching toward the sky. Rain sounds different in different seasons. Winter rain is sharp, cold drops hitting frozen ground with a brittle sound. Spring rain is softer, warmer, tapping gently on new leaves and wet soil. Summer rain is heavy, thunderous, pounding rooftops and pavement with heat and urgency. Autumn rain is steady, quiet, slipping through bare branches and gathering in puddles that reflect grey skies. Each season changes not just the frequency of rain, but its character, the temperature, the size of the drops, the surfaces they strike, all combine to create a unique sound. And if you listen closely, you can hear the season in the rain. You can tell without looking outside whether the world is waking, blooming, resting, or preparing to sleep. Acid rain is less common now than it used to be. In the mid-20th century, acid rain became a serious environmental problem. Pollution from factories and vehicles released sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides into the air. These gases mixed with water vapor in clouds, forming sulfuric and nitric acids that fell as rain, damaging forests, lakes, and buildings. But changes in regulations, cleaner fuels, and pollution controls have significantly reduced acid rain in many parts of the world. Lakes that were once lifeless are recovering. Forests are regrowing. It's a reminder that human actions matter, both in harm and in healing. Rain, which had become a symptom of industrial excess, is slowly returning to its natural balance. The sky, it turns out, can forgive. Rain helps plants communicate. When rain falls on a plant, it doesn't just water the roots. It also helps plants send chemical signals to each other. Some plants release volatile organic compounds into the air when stressed by pests or disease. Rain can wash these compounds into the soil, where neighboring plants absorb them through their roots, triggering defensive responses. In this way, rain acts as a messenger, carrying warnings and information across the garden or forest. It connects plants in a web of communication, invisible and ongoing. A tomato plant under attack can alert its neighbors. A tree weakened by drought can signal distress, and rain, falling gently, becomes the medium through which these quiet conversations flow. The first rains on early Earth may have been boiling. When Earth was young, just forming from dust and rock, its surface was molten, scorching hot. As the planet cooled, water vapor began to condense in the atmosphere. But the surface was still so hot that when rain fell, it didn't pool. It evaporated instantly, sometimes even before touching the ground. This cycle, rain evaporating and rising again, may have continued for thousands or even millions of years. Eventually, the planet cooled enough for water to remain liquid, and oceans began to form. But those early rains falling on glowing stone and vanishing in steam were Earth's first attempts at weather. A beginning, violent and strange, but a beginning nonetheless. Rain can trigger migraines in some people. For some individuals, an approaching rainstorm brings not just weather, but pain. Changes in barometric pressure, which often drop before rain, can affect the pressure inside the skull, triggering migraines or headaches. The exact mechanism isn't fully understood, but the correlation is well documented. These people become human barometers, feeling the storm before it arrives, not through smell or sight, but through discomfort. It's a reminder that we are not separate from the atmosphere. We live inside it. And when it shifts, we shift too. Our bodies, sensitive and responsive, are woven into the same forces that bring rain, wind, and change. Rainbows are always in the same place relative to the sun. A rainbow isn't a physical object. It's an optical illusion created when sunlight passes through water droplets in the air, bending and splitting into colors. Because of the geometry involved, a rainbow always appears opposite the sun, at a specific angle. If the sun is behind you, the rainbow is ahead. If you move, the rainbow seems to move too, but it's always in the same relative position. You can never reach a rainbow. You can never walk through it. It exists only from your perspective, a momentary alignment of light, water, and your exact position. And yet, it's real. You see it. Others see it too, each from their own vantage point. Rain, in this way, creates beauty that belongs to everyone and no one, fleeting and shared. Some places experience rain at the same time every day in tropical regions near the equator. Rain often follows a predictable pattern. Each afternoon, as the sun heats the land, warm air rises, moisture condenses, and clouds form. By mid-afternoon or early evening, rain begins, sometimes almost to the minute. This happens day after day, season after season. A rhythm set by geography and heat. Locals learn to plan around it. Markets open early. Outdoor work happens in the morning. By the time the rain arrives, people are already sheltering, waiting, accustomed to the pattern. It's a kind of clockwork rain, dependable and rhythmic, and in its regularity, there's comfort. Rain as routine, rain as certainty, rain that arrives right on time. Rain is essential to river formation. Rivers don't begin as rivers. They begin as rain. Each drop that falls on high ground begins a journey downhill, joining other drops to form tiny rivulets. These merge into streams. Streams join to form creeks. Creeks become rivers, and rivers flow to the sea, carrying the accumulated rain of entire watersheds. Without rain, there are no rivers. The mightiest waterways on earth, the Amazon, the Nile, the Mississippi, are fed by countless rainstorms scattered across time and space. Every river is a story told in water, a journey that begins in the sky and ends in the ocean. And rain, patient and persistent, is the author of that story. Rain can be too heavy for drains to handle. Urban areas are built with drainage systems designed to handle typical rainfall. But when storms exceed expectations, when rain falls faster than drains can carry it away, streets flood. Water pools, rises, and overwhelms infrastructure. This is becoming more common as climate patterns shift and extreme weather events grow more frequent. Cities are adapting, building green spaces that absorb water, expanding drainage networks, and designing permeable surfaces that let rain soak into the ground. But the lesson remains: rain is powerful. It doesn't ask permission, it simply falls. And if we don't make space for it, it will make space for itself, filling streets, basements, and low-lying areas until it finds a way through. Rain in the Amazon can sound like applause. In the dense canopy of a rainforest, rain doesn't reach the ground immediately. It hits the topmost leaves first, thousands of drops striking broad surfaces, creating a sound like distant applause. Then it drips from leaf to leaf, tear by tear, a slow cascade through layers of green. By the time it reaches the forest floor, the rain has softened, muffled by the journey. This multi-layered descent means the forest stays wet long after the rain stops. Water drips for hours, sometimes days, from leaves and branches. The forest holds the rain, savors it, and releases it slowly. And in that held moisture, life thrives. Plants, insects, fungi, all sustained by water that lingers, soft and persistent. In the green cathedral overhead, warm rain is heavier than cold rain. Temperature affects not just how rain feels, but how it falls. Warmer air can hold more moisture, so warm rain often comes in larger, heavier drops. These drops fall faster and hit harder, creating more intense rainfall in shorter periods. Cold rain, by contrast, tends to be lighter, smaller droplets that drift down more gently. This is why summer storms can feel so powerful. The drops are bigger, the air is thicker with moisture, and the rain arrives with force. Winter rain, though colder, is often quieter, softer, less intense. The temperature of the sky shapes the character of the water, and the water, in turn, shapes how we experience the storm. Some cultures have dozens of words for rain. In English, we say rain and let context do the rest. But in many languages, especially those spoken in regions where rain is central to life, there are dozens of words to describe different types of rainfall. A light mist, a drizzle, a downpour, a storm. Each has its own name, its own nuance. In Scotland, there's smur for a fine mist, dreich for dreary drizzle. In Hawaiian, ua means rain, but combined with other words, it becomes ua kipuupu'u, a passing shower, or ua loku, a driving rain. These words reflect attention, observation, intimacy. When you live with rain, you learn its moods, and language grows to match that knowledge, soft and specific, like the rain itself. Rain can erode soil faster than it forms. Soil takes centuries to form, a slow accumulation of weathered rock, decayed plants, and organic matter. But rain, especially intense rain on bare ground, can wash it away in minutes. Without plant roots to hold the soil in place, water flows freely, carrying sediment downhill and into rivers. This erosion is a natural process, but human activity, deforestation, farming, construction, has accelerated it dramatically. In some regions, soil is being lost faster than it can regenerate. Rain, which once nourished the land, now strips it bare. But the solution is simple and ancient. Grow things. Let roots hold the earth. Cover the ground with green. And rain, once again, becomes a builder, not a destroyer. Petrichor is one of the most universally loved scents. Across cultures, continents, and climates, people tend to agree on one thing. The smell of rain is wonderful. Studies have shown that the scent of petrichor, that earthy, fresh smell after rain, is nearly universally enjoyed. It transcends language, geography, and personal preference. Why do we love it? Perhaps because it signals relief. In dry places, rain means survival. In hot places, it means cooling. In any place, it means change, renewal, a break from what was. And our noses, sensitive and ancient, remember this. So when we smell rain, we don't just smell water. We smell hope, comfort, and the promise that the world is still turning, still providing, still alive. Rain is how the ocean reclaims the land. Every river that flows to the sea carries dissolved minerals, salts, and nutrients eroded from rock and soil. Over time, the ocean becomes saltier, richer, more chemically complex. But rain is pure, distilled from the sea through evaporation, leaving salt and impurities behind. When rain falls on land, it begins to dissolve and transport material back toward the ocean. It's a slow endless exchange. The ocean gives water to the sky gives water to the land gives minerals to the rivers, and the rivers return everything to the sea. Rain is the thread that ties it all together, the courier of this ancient cycle, moving water and matter in an endless loop that has shaped the planet for billions of years. Rain makes forests darker and quieter. When rain falls in a forest, something shifts. Colors deepen. Greens become richer. Browns turn almost black. The air grows thick with moisture and sound changes. Birds stop singing. Insects quiet. Even the rustle of leaves softens under the weight of water. The rain creates a kind of hush, a muffling blanket over the world. And in that quiet darkness, the forest seems to turn inward, to rest, to simply exist without performance. There's no wind, no birdsong, no distant hum of life. Just rain, falling through layers of green, tapping softly, endlessly, on a world that has paused to listen. Some raindrops never touch the ground alone. In certain conditions, when rain is light and wind is present, droplets can collide in mid-air. They merge, becoming larger drops that fall faster and land harder. Other times, drops bounce off leaves, split apart, and rejoin with different drops. Rain, in this sense, is social. It mingles, merges, separates, and finds new companions on the way down. By the time a drop reaches the ground, it may contain water from dozens of other drops, each with its own brief journey through the sky. Rain isn't just falling, it's constantly reshaping itself, a fluid community descending together, touching, blending, and arriving as something new. Rain doesn't fall in straight lines. It seems like rain should fall straight down, pulled by gravity. But wind, even light wind, pushes it sideways. Updrafts lift it. Turbulence swirls it. So rain falls in curves, slants, spirals, arcing through the air in paths that are never perfectly vertical. Watch rain out a window, and you'll see it drift, waver, shift direction. This wandering descent means rain covers more ground than it would if it fell straight. It reaches under eaves, into corners, behind obstacles. Rain doesn't move like an arrow. It moves like a dancer, responsive to every current and gust, finding its way down through a constantly shifting sky. The first rainfall on land changed everything. For millions of years after Earth formed, rain fell only on oceans. There was no land vegetation, no soil, nothing to catch or absorb the water. When continents first emerged from the sea, rain began falling on bare rock. This was transformative. The rain weathered stone, creating the first primitive soils. It carved the first river channels. It created the conditions necessary for life to eventually move from sea to land. Without rain on land, there would be no forests, no grasslands, no terrestrial life as we know it. That first rain on ancient continents set in motion a process that continues today. Rain touching earth, earth becoming soil, soil nurturing life. It's a partnership billions of years old, and it began the moment water first fell on empty stone. Rain can fall upward in powerful thunderstorms. Updrafts inside the cloud can be so strong, they push raindrops back up into the sky. These drops rise, freeze, and become hail, or simply get suspended in the turbulent air, cycling up and down multiple times before finally falling to the ground. In the most violent storms, water can be held aloft for many minutes, growing larger with each cycle. This means rain doesn't always fall on its first attempt. Sometimes it's caught, lifted, frozen, and released again. The storm becomes a kind of machine, processing water through layers of temperature and wind. And when the rain finally does escape, when it finally reaches the ground, it has traveled far more than the simple distance from cloud to earth. It has journeyed through the storm itself. Your ancestors heard the same rain. The sound of rain hasn't changed. The rhythm, the patter, the way it taps on surfaces and murmurs in the distance. It's been the same for as long as humans have existed. Your ancestors, thousands of years ago, heard exactly what you hear when rain falls on your roof. They sheltered under the same sound, waited out the same storms, felt the same relief when the rain finally came. Rain is one of the few experiences truly shared across all of human history. It connects us not just to the present, but to everyone who has ever lived. Every culture has rain in its stories, its songs, its prayers. And when you listen to rain tonight, you're joining a listening that stretches back through countless generations. A sound that has always been there, constant and familiar. Rain shapes how cities are built. Walk through any old city, and you'll see how rain has influenced its design. Sloped roofs to shed water, gutters and downspouts, cobblestone streets with central channels for drainage, covered walkways and arcades. Rain doesn't just fall on cities, it shapes them. Architects and builders have always had to account for water, to make space for it, to direct it safely away. In some places, rain determines the entire structure of life. In Venice, rain swells the canals. In Mumbai, monsoons dictate the rhythm of the year. In Seattle, rain is so constant that buildings are designed with it as a permanent feature, not a temporary visitor. Rain, in this way, is an invisible architect, shaping human spaces as surely as it shapes mountains and valleys. Some trees depend entirely on fog and mist. In coastal forests, where direct rainfall is scarce, some trees have learned to harvest water from the air itself. Fog rolls in from the ocean, and as it passes through branches and needles, droplets condense and drip to the ground. This fog drip can provide more water than actual rain, especially in dry seasons. Redwoods in California, for example, depend heavily on summer fog to survive the dry months. The trees don't just tolerate the mist, they capture it, channeling moisture down their trunks and into the soil. In this way, rain doesn't need to fall from clouds to nourish life. Sometimes it simply drifts through the air, and patient trees reach out to gather it, one droplet at a time. Rain was once thought to come from rivers in the sky. Before modern meteorology, many cultures believed that rain came from rivers or reservoirs in the heavens. The sky was seen as a mirror of Earth, with its own bodies of water that occasionally spilled over or leaked through cracks. Some thought clouds were sponges that absorbed water from celestial seas and then released it when squeezed by wind. These ideas weren't entirely wrong. There is water in the sky, vast amounts of it, and it does flow in rivers, atmospheric rivers, massive streams of moisture that move through the air and release rain when they encounter mountains or cold fronts. The ancients intuited something true. They just described it in the language they had. And in their myths, we see the same wonder we feel today when we try to understand where rain comes from. Rain on other planets would kill you instantly. Rain isn't unique to Earth, but Earth's rain is unique in the solar system. On Venus, it rains sulfuric acid so hot it evaporates before reaching the ground. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, It rains liquid methane and ethane in frigid temperatures hundreds of degrees below zero. These rains would be lethal, toxic, corrosive, or freezing. Earth's rain is gentle by cosmic standards. Just water, pure and simple, falling at temperatures we can survive. This makes our rain not just a weather phenomenon, but a gift. In the vastness of space, liquid water falling from the sky is rare, precious, and essential. We are lucky, in a universe of hostile rains, to live beneath one that nourishes rather than destroys. Rain helps clean the air you breathe. As rain falls, it collects dust, pollen, pollution, and particles suspended in the air. These contaminants stick to water droplets and are carried to the ground. This is why the air feels cleaner after a rain, because it is cleaner. Rain acts as a natural scrubber, washing impurities out of the atmosphere and leaving behind fresher, clearer air. This cleaning process is essential for air quality. Without rain, pollution would accumulate indefinitely, making the air increasingly difficult to breathe. Rain resets the atmosphere, carries away what doesn't belong, and gives us a fresh start. It's a quiet service, ongoing and invisible, but one we depend on with every breath we take. The word pluvial means relating to rain language, carries hidden poetry, and one of the most beautiful rain-related words is pluvial. Derived from Latin, it means of or relating to rain. A pluvial period is a time of increased rainfall. A pluvial lake forms from rain. The word itself sounds like what it describes, soft and flowing, a whisper of water. There are other rain words too. Petrichor, the smell of rain on dry earth. Virga, rain that evaporates before landing. Drizzle, downpour, deluge. Each word tries to capture something about rain's character, its mood, its intensity. And in naming these things, we show how much attention we've paid. Rain is not just water, it's a language, and we've been learning to speak it for as long as we've had words. Rain nourishes the smallest and largest life forms. A single raindrop can sustain a microbe. A season of rain can sustain a whale. Rain falls on the tiniest moss and the tallest tree, on bacteria in the soil and elephants in the savannah. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't choose. It simply falls, and whatever needs water receives it. This universality is one of rain's most profound qualities. It connects all life in a single gesture, cloud to ground, sky to soil, water to everything. In rain, the smallest and largest forms of life find common ground. All drink from the same source. All depend on the same falling droplets. And in that shared dependence, there's a kind of equality, quiet and absolute. You can hear rain before you feel it. Rain often announces itself with sound before it arrives. You hear it approaching, a soft hiss in the distance, growing louder as it moves closer. By the time the first drops touch your skin, you've already been listening for seconds, maybe minutes. That sound is a warning and an invitation, a chance to seek shelter or to step outside and greet it. This auditory arrival gives rain a presence that goes beyond the physical. It's not just water, it's an event with stages. First the sound, then the sight, then the touch, and finally, if you're outside long enough, the smell, the cooling, the way everything changes when water begins to fall. Rain doesn't just happen. It unfolds, layer by layer, sense by sense. Rain has inspired more music than any other weather. From jazz to classical, from folk songs to symphonies, rain appears in music more than any other weather phenomenon. Singing in the Rain, Purple Rain, Have You Ever Seen the Rain, November Rain, countless songs across every genre. Composers use rain as rhythm, as mood, as metaphor. Why does rain inspire so much music? Perhaps because it has rhythm built in. Perhaps because it evokes emotion, melancholy, joy, reflection, renewal. Or perhaps because rain, like music, is something we feel more than understand. Both move through us, both create atmospheres, both linger after they've ended. Rain and music speak the same language, one of pattern, emotion, and quiet transformation. Rain teaches patience. You cannot rush rain. You cannot make it stop or start, speed it up or slow it down. You can only wait for it, receive it, and let it pass in its own time. Rain operates on its own schedule, indifferent to human plans. And in that indifference, there's a lesson. When rain comes, you adapt, you change your plans, you find shelter or embrace the wetness. You slow down, delay, reschedule. Rain teaches us that some things cannot be controlled, only accepted. And in that acceptance, there's a kind of peace. The world will do what it does. Rain will fall when it falls. And you, patient and present, will be there to meet it. Rain will outlast us long after humans are gone. Rain will still fall. It fell before we arrived, and it will fall long after we've vanished. Rain doesn't need us. It never has. It's part of Earth's fundamental processes, woven into the physics of atmosphere, heat, and water. As long as there are oceans and sunlight, there will be rain. This is oddly comforting. Rain is larger than us, older than us, more enduring than anything we've built. It's a constant in a changing world. And when you stand in the rain, you're participating in something ancient and ongoing. A cycle that began billions of years ago and will continue billions of years into the future. Rain connects us to deep time, to the planet's long memory, to the slow and steady turning of water through sky and earth. Rain changes the color of the world. When rain falls, colors shift in ways we rarely stop to notice. Dry surfaces are dull, dusty, faded by sun and air. But water brings out depth. A grey sidewalk becomes charcoal. Red brick turns burgundy. Green leaves shimmer with darkness and light all at once. Rain acts as a developer, like chemicals on old photographs, revealing colours that were always there but hidden beneath a layer of dryness. This is because water fills tiny gaps and irregularities in surfaces, smoothing them and changing how light reflects. Wet things absorb more light, reflect less, and appear darker and richer. So when you look out at a rainy day and everything seems more vivid, more alive, it's not your imagination. Rain has temporarily transformed the world, brought out its true colors, deep and saturated and honest. Every ocean was once a cloud. The water in every ocean, lake and river has cycled through the atmosphere countless times. Each molecule has been vapor, has been cloud, has fallen as rain. The Pacific, the Atlantic, the Arctic seas, all of them have spent time suspended in the sky, weightless and invisible, before condensing and returning to Earth. This means the boundary between ocean and sky is less fixed than it seems. Water moves between them constantly, fluidly, without hesitation. Today's ocean is tomorrow's cloud. Tomorrow's rain becomes next week's river. And that river flows back to the sea, completing the circle. The ocean and the sky are not separate. They're two states of the same water, exchanging places in an endless, graceful dance. Rain sounds different on different roofs. Tin roofs create a sharp metallic drumming, loud and insistent. Tile roofs produce a softer patter, more muffled. Thatched roofs absorb rain almost silently, a gentle whisper overhead. Flat concrete roofs create a dull, steady thud. The material matters, but so does the shape. Pitched roofs amplify sound. Curved roofs scatter it. People who live in the same town but under different roofs experience different rains. One person hears a symphony, another barely hears anything at all. And in this, there's something intimate. The rain that falls on your roof is yours alone, filtered through architecture and material into a sound that belongs to your home, your shelter, your particular place in the world. Some plants close their flowers when rain approaches. Certain flowers can sense changes in humidity and air pressure before rain arrives. When they detect a storm coming, they close their petals to protect their pollen and nectar from being washed away. It's a defensive gesture, a way of preserving what's precious until the rain passes and pollinators can return. Morning glories, tulips, and dandelions all close before rain. They're not reacting to water, they're reacting to the atmospheric shifts that precede it. In this way, flowers become predictors, quiet meteorologists reading the sky through pressure and moisture. And in their closing, they show us that survival often means knowing when to protect yourself, when to wait, when to stay closed until the world is ready for you again. Rain has different textures. Warm rain feels soft, almost gentle on the skin. Cold rain is sharp, stinging. Heavy rain has weight, each drop a tiny impact. Light drizzle barely registers, more mist than water. And in between are countless variations, each storm with its own tactile signature. This texture matters to how we experience rain. Soft summer rain invites you to stay outside, to let it soak you. Cold winter rain drives you indoors, searching for warmth. Heavy rain demands respect, makes you move faster, seek cover. Light rain barely asks anything at all, just a whisper on your face, easy to ignore or embrace. Rain doesn't just fall, it touches, and the way it touches changes everything. Sailors once used rain to survive at sea. Before modern desalination, sailors on long voyages depended on rain for drinking water. They collected it in barrels, stretched canvas to catch it, and rationed it carefully. Rain was the difference between life and death, between making it to the next port and perishing from thirst surrounded by undrinkable ocean. This made rain sacred. Sailors watched the sky constantly, reading clouds for signs of water. When rain finally came, it was celebrated, a gift from the heavens. And in their journals and logs, they recorded every rain, every barrel filled, every drop that kept them alive. Rain wasn't just weather, it was providence. And for those at sea, far from land and fresh water, it was everything. Rain creates temporary ecosystems in puddles. A puddle seems like nothing, just water pooled on pavement or soil. But within hours, it becomes a miniature world. Mosquito larvae wriggle in the shallows. Bacteria bloom. Algae begin to grow if the puddle lasts long enough. Birds visit to drink and bathe. Insects land on the surface, skating across the water film. These ecosystems are fleeting, lasting days, or sometimes just hours before the sun returns and the puddle evaporates. But while they exist, they're vibrant and alive, proof that life finds a way into every available space, no matter how temporary. Rain creates these worlds constantly, scattered across the landscape, brief and teeming, born from water and gone with the sun. The smell of rain is different in cities and forests. In cities, Rain smells metallic, tinged with asphalt and exhaust. There's a sharpness to it, a mix of ozone and concrete and human industry. In forests, rain smells earthy, rich with petrichor and the organic decay of leaves and wood. The scent is deeper, older, more alive. This difference reflects what rain touches. In cities, it washes over metal, glass and stone, picking up chemicals and pollutants. In forests, it falls on soil, bark and living things, releasing compounds that have been waiting in the earth. Both smells are rain, but filtered through different worlds. And in that filtering, rain becomes a messenger, telling you where you are just by how it smells. Rain carved the Grand Canyon. The Colorado River is famous for carving the Grand Canyon, but the river itself is fed by rain and snowmelt. Every drop that falls in the watershed eventually flows into the river, carrying with it microscopic particles of rock. Over 6 million years, those drops, countless and persistent, carved through nearly a mile of stone. It's hard to fathom that something as soft as water could cut through solid rock. But time is rain's secret weapon. A single drop does nothing. A trillion drops, over millennia, reshape continents. The Grand Canyon is proof of rain's patience, a monument to what water can accomplish when it never, ever stops falling. Some animals drink only rainwater. Certain species never drink from rivers, lakes, or streams. They survive entirely on rain. Tree frogs, for example, collect water in the hollows of trees or in the cups formed by leaves. Some insects drink only from dewdrops or rain puddles. Certain birds prefer rainwater to standing water, finding it cleaner and fresher. This dependence makes them vulnerable. When droughts last too long, these creatures have no backup. They wait, conserving moisture, slowing their metabolism, hoping for rain. And when it finally comes, they emerge, drink deeply, and resume their lives. Rain, for them, isn't just water, it's the only water, and they've evolved to trust it will return. Rain makes night darker. On a clear night, starlight and moonlight reach the ground, providing faint illumination. But when rain falls, clouds block that light. Water droplets scatter what little light remains. The world becomes darker, more enclosed, as if the sky has lowered and closed in around you. This darkness changes how night feels. It's more intimate, quieter, more focused on immediate surroundings. Sounds become sharper because sight is diminished. And in that darkness, rain becomes not just something you see or hear, but something you feel enveloping you, a presence in the black, tapping softly, endlessly, in a world reduced to sound and touch. Rainwater harvesting is thousands of years old. Ancient civilizations understood the value of collecting rain. In the Negev desert, farmers built elaborate systems of channels and cisterns to capture every drop. In Rome, aqueducts and reservoirs stored rainwater for dry seasons. In India, stepwells and tanks collected monsoon rains to last through the year. These systems weren't just practical, they were survival. Communities that learned to harvest rain thrived. Those that didn't struggled. And the knowledge passed down through generations, refinements and improvements, ways of working with rain rather than depending on rivers alone. We're rediscovering these ancient practices now, building green roofs and rain gardens, remembering what our ancestors knew. Rain is too precious to let it all run away. Rain can fall from clear sky in the mountains, in mountainous regions. Strange things happen with weather. Wind can carry rain sideways for miles. Clouds can form on one side of a peak, and release rain on the other, where the sky appears clear. Moisture can be wrung from air by sudden changes in elevation, creating rain that seems to come from nowhere. Mountain people learn not to trust what they see overhead. Clear sky doesn't mean you'll stay dry. Clouds far away can still reach you with water carried on the wind. Rain in the mountains is less predictable, more whimsical, as if the terrain itself bends the rules of weather. And in that unpredictability, there's a reminder to stay humble, to respect the mountain's ability to surprise you. Every raindrop contains ancient water. The water molecules falling as rain today are billions of years old. They've been part of oceans, rivers, glaciers, and clouds since Earth's early days. Some molecules in today's rain may have fallen as rain on dinosaurs, been drunk by ancient humans, or flowed through rivers that no longer exist. Water doesn't age or decay. It simply cycles, endlessly reused, endlessly renewed. So when rain touches your hand, you're touching deep time, holding molecules that have witnessed the entire history of life on Earth. Rain connects you to every era, every creature, every storm that has ever been. It's not just water, it's memory, liquid and timeless. Rain influences the pitch of thunder. Thunder is the sound of air rapidly expanding and contracting around a lightning bolt. But rain affects how that sound travels. Heavy rain dampens sound, making thunder seem deeper, more muffled. Light rain barely changes it. And the distance between you and the storm, filtered through curtains of falling water, creates variations in volume and tone. So no two thunderstorms sound exactly alike. Each is shaped by rainfall intensity, drop size, and how far the sound must travel through wet air. Thunder becomes not just a warning of lightning, but a unique acoustic event, shaped by the rain that accompanies it. And in listening carefully, you can hear not just the storm, but the specific character of the rain that surrounds it. Some cultures consider rain a blessing. In many traditions, rain is sacred, a gift from gods or spirits. Rain dances, rain ceremonies, prayers for rain. These practices appear in cultures around the world. Rain brings life, ends drought, ensures harvest. Without it, communities perish. So rain becomes holy, something to be honored, requested, and celebrated when it arrives. These traditions recognize what science confirms, that rain is essential, that life depends on it absolutely. And in treating rain as sacred, these cultures acknowledge their relationship with water, their dependence on forces beyond their control. Rain falls or it doesn't, and everything else follows from that simple fact. Reverence, in this context, is just clear-eyed understanding dressed in ritual and prayer. Rain can be too clean to drink safely. Pure rainwater, falling through unpolluted air, is technically safe to drink. But in many places, rain picks up pollutants, bacteria, or chemicals as it falls or as it runs off roofs and surfaces. Additionally, extremely pure water lacks the minerals our bodies expect, and drinking only distilled or rainwater long-term can leach minerals from the body. So rainwater, despite seeming pristine, often needs filtering or treatment. The ancient practice of collecting rain was always paired with storage methods that allowed sediment to settle and impurities to be removed. Rain is generous, but it's not necessarily ready to drink as it lands. It needs time, settling, and respect for what it may have collected on its journey from cloud to cup. Rain changes how animals behave. When rain approaches or begins, the natural world shifts. Deer bed down in sheltered spots. Birds hunker in branches, fluffing their feathers. Rabbits retreat to burrows. Even insects seek cover, hiding under leaves or in crevices. The whole landscape seems to pause, to wait. But not all animals hide. Some emerge specifically because of rain. Earthworms surface to avoid drowning in saturated soil. Frogs become active, calling and mating in puddles. Slugs and snails glide across wet surfaces. Rain doesn't just make animals seek shelter. It also wakes certain creatures from dormancy, calling them into a world made temporarily perfect by moisture. The speed of rain varies with altitude. Rain doesn't fall at a constant speed throughout its descent. It accelerates as it leaves the cloud, then reaches terminal velocity, then can even slow again if it passes through different air densities. High altitude rain might start fast, but encounter thicker air below and decelerate. Rain over mountains behaves differently than rain over valleys. This means a raindrop's journey is not smooth or uniform. It's a series of accelerations and resistances, a negotiation between gravity and atmosphere. And by the time it reaches you, it has traveled through layers of wind, temperature, and pressure, each one shaping its speed and trajectory. A raindrop's fall is a story of adaptation, constantly adjusting to the air it moves through. Rain shadows create deserts. When moist air encounters a mountain range, it rises and cools, releasing rain on the windward side. By the time the air descends on the other side, it's wrung dry, unable to produce precipitation. This creates a rain shadow, a region where rain rarely falls. Some of the world's driest deserts exist because mountains block moisture from reaching them. The Atacama Desert in Chile, the Gobi in Asia, even parts of California, all owe their aridity to rain shadows. Mountains don't just shape the land through physical presence, they shape climate and weather. They decide who gets rain and who doesn't, creating lush forests on one slope and barren deserts on the other, just miles apart but worlds away in terms of water. Rain is quieter than you think when you're in it. Standing inside during rain, it can seem loud, insistent, even overwhelming. But step outside into it, and the sound changes. It becomes softer, more diffuse. The individual impacts blur into ambient noise, almost like white noise, soothing rather than jarring. This is because your perspective changes. Inside, rain hits surfaces that amplify and direct sound toward you. Outside, sound spreads in all directions, absorbed by your body, your clothes, the ground. You become part of the rain rather than separate from it. And in that immersion, the sound gentles, becomes less an intrusion and more an envelope, surrounding you but not overwhelming you. Ancient forests affect rainfall patterns. Large forests, especially old-growth forests, influence local and regional rainfall. Trees release moisture through transpiration, which rises and forms clouds. They also cool the air and create conditions favorable for rain. Deforestation disrupts these patterns, leading to decreased rainfall and altered weather. This means forests and rain are partners, each sustaining the other. A forest creates rain, and rain sustains the forest. Break that cycle, and both suffer. Regions that lose their forests often find that rainfall declines, droughts become more common, and the climate shifts. Rain doesn't just fall randomly. It falls where conditions invite it, and forests are among the most persuasive invitations. Rain has inspired countless poems, from ancient verses to modern free verse. Poets have written about rain more than almost any other natural phenomenon. Rain as metaphor for tears, for cleansing, for melancholy, for renewal. Rain as rhythm, as sound, as mood. It appears in haiku, sonnets, ballads, elegies. Perhaps rain invites poetry because it's both concrete and abstract, physical water, but also emotional atmosphere. Or perhaps because it changes so much, its mood, its intensity, its meaning, that poets find endless variations to explore. Rain doesn't have a single story. It has thousands, and each poet finds their own, written in water falling from the sky. Some regions receive their entire year's rain in one season. Monsoon climates experience this extreme pattern. For months, the sky is clear, the land dry. Then the monsoon arrives, and rain falls daily, sometimes hourly, for weeks or months. In this period, the entire year's water arrives, flooding rivers, saturating soil, turning brown landscapes green. Life in these regions revolves around the monsoon. Planting, harvesting, travel, construction, everything is timed to either avoid or take advantage of the rain. The monsoon isn't just weather, it's the organizing principle of the year, the event around which everything else is structured. And when it comes, it's not gentle or gradual. It's a deluge, life-giving and overwhelming all at once. Rain makes roads dangerous. Wet pavement reduces tire traction. Oil and debris on roads become slick when first wet. Visibility decreases, reaction times suffer. Hydroplaning occurs when tires lose contact with the road surface, skimming on a layer of water. Accidents increase significantly during and after rain. This danger is a reminder that rain changes the physical world in ways we must respect. What was safe becomes hazardous. What was clear becomes obscured. Rain asks us to slow down, to adjust, to recognize that the world operates differently when water is present. And those who forget, who drive as if the road is dry, often learn the hard way that rain demands caution. Rainbows only appear when the sun is behind you. The geometry of a rainbow is precise. Sunlight must enter raindrops, reflect inside them, and exit at a specific angle toward your eye. This only happens when the sun is at your back and rain is in front of you. If the sun is in front, no rainbow appears, at least not where you can see it. This means rainbows are deeply personal. Your rainbow exists in a specific relationship between sun, rain, and your position. Move a few feet, and the rainbow shifts. Someone standing beside you sees a slightly different rainbow, one created by different raindrops at different angles. Rainbows are shared experiences, but each one is also uniquely yours, assembled by light and water in the exact moment you stand and look. Rain nourishes languages in regions where rain is vital. Languages develop rich vocabularies for it. Not just words for rain itself, but for the timing, the smell, the way it feels, the results it brings. Languages spoken in wet climates have words for concepts that barely exist in arid regions. This linguistic richness reflects attention and necessity. When rain matters deeply, you notice its variations. You give them names. And those names shape how you think about rain, how you remember it, how you anticipate it. Language doesn't just describe rain, it holds rain, keeps it in memory and culture, passes knowledge from one generation to the next. Rain can fall as liquid, freeze, and become hail in the same storm. Inside a powerful thunderstorm, a raindrop can cycle between liquid and solid multiple times. It falls as rain, gets caught in an updraft, rises into freezing air, becomes ice, falls again, collects more water, rises again, freezes again. Each cycle adds a layer, like tree rings, until the hailstone is too heavy for updrafts to hold and it finally crashes to the ground. These hailstones carry evidence of their journey. Cut one open and you'll see layers, alternating clear and opaque ice, each one representing a trip through the storm. A hailstone isn't just frozen rain, it's a history, a record of turbulence and altitude, written in ice and preserved until the moment it lands. Petrichor lingers longest in shaded areas. That rain smell, petrichor, is strongest immediately after rain hits dry ground, but it fades quickly in sun and wind, evaporating and dispersing. In shaded areas, under trees or between buildings, the scent lingers longer. Moisture stays in the air, the sun can't bake it away, and the smell endures. This creates pockets of smell, places where you can still breathe in rain long after the storm has passed. Walk through a forest hours after rain, and you'll still catch it in the shadows. Step into an alley between brick buildings, and there it is, faint but present. Rain leaves traces, and if you know where to look, or rather, where to smell, you can find them long after the water has dried. Rain makes music in bamboo forests. Bamboo culms, hollow and tall, create resonant chambers when rain strikes them. Each stalk produces a slightly different note depending on its size and thickness. Together, a bamboo forest becomes an orchestra during rain. Hundreds of natural instruments playing all at once, random but somehow harmonious. People have built bamboo rain chimes to recreate this effect, suspending hollow tubes to catch rain and channel water through them, creating melodies as water flows. But in a natural bamboo forest, the music is wilder, more chaotic, a symphony conducted by wind and rain with no rehearsal and no score. Just bamboo, rain, and the accidental beauty that emerges when nature plays itself. Rain brings nitrogen to soil. Lightning during thunderstorms splits nitrogen molecules in the atmosphere. These molecules combine with oxygen to form nitrogen oxides, which dissolve in rain and fall to the ground. Once in the soil, nitrogen becomes available to plants, acting as natural fertilizer. This process has been happening for millions of years, long before humans invented synthetic fertilizer. Rain doesn't just bring water, it brings nutrients, chemicals transformed by lightning and delivered by water. Every thunderstorm is a small miracle of chemistry, turning atmospheric gas into food for plants, and plants in turn grow stronger, greener, fed by the sky. Some people feel calm when it rains. Rain has a documented effect on mood and mental state for some individuals. The sound creates white noise that can calm an overactive mind. The decrease in barometric pressure can induce relaxation. The excuse to stay indoors, to slow down, can reduce stress and anxiety. Not everyone feels this way. Some find rain oppressive or depressing. But for many, rain is a relief, permission to rest, to be still. The world outside is wet, and there's nothing to be done about it. So you might as well settle in, listen, and let the rain wash through your thoughts the way it washes over the ground. Sometimes calm doesn't come from action. It comes from accepting that action can wait. Rain once fell for 40 days in myth and memory. The story of the Great Flood appears in many cultures and religions. Rain falling for 40 days and 40 nights, covering the earth, reshaping the world. Whether this reflects a real catastrophic event, regional flooding remembered and mythologized, or purely symbolic teaching, the story endures. It speaks to rain's power, not just to nourish, but to destroy, to reset, to cleanse everything away. Rain in this context becomes judgment, transformation, and ultimately renewal. After the flood comes new growth, new life, a second chance. And whether literal or metaphorical, the story reminds us that rain, in abundance, is a force capable of changing everything. Rain determines where people live. Civilizations cluster where water is reliable, near rivers fed by rain. In temperate zones with balanced precipitation, around coasts where rain comes regularly. Human settlement patterns follow rainfall patterns, have always followed them, and likely always will. Even in modern times, with desalination and water transport, most people still live where rain makes life easier. Cities in deserts require massive infrastructure to survive. Cities where rain falls naturally need less intervention, less energy, less effort. Rain, in this fundamental way, decides geography and destiny, drawing people to where water falls and life flourishes. Rain can wake dormant seeds decades old. In deserts and dry regions, seeds can lie dormant for 10, 20, even 50 years, waiting for rain. They're designed to survive, protected by hard coats, biochemically paused. Then rain comes, and within days, they germinate, sending roots down and shoots up, racing to bloom and set seed before the water runs out. This patience is extraordinary. A seed doesn't know if rain will ever come again. It just waits. And when water finally arrives, it doesn't hesitate. It grows, blooms, and completes its life cycle in weeks. Rain, for these seeds, is the starting gun, the signal that the wait is over and life can finally begin. The sound of rain can improve sleep. White noise machines often include rain sounds, and for good reason. The consistent, non-rhythmic patter helps mask irregular noises that might wake you. The sound is organic, familiar, soothing. Studies suggest that nature sounds, including rain, can improve sleep quality and reduce the time it takes to fall asleep. Rain creates an auditory cocoon, blocking out the unpredictable sounds of the world and replacing them with something steady and gentle. Your brain stops listening for threats and starts relaxing into the constant, safe sound. And in that relaxation, sleep comes easier, deeper, more restful. Rain becomes a lullaby, ancient and universal. Rain fed the first oceans when Earth's crust cooled enough for liquid water to remain stable. Rain began to accumulate. For thousands, maybe millions of years, rain fell continuously, pooling in low areas, forming the first lakes, then seas, then oceans. The water you swim in today fell as rain long before life existed, when the planet was young and still learning to hold water. Those ancient rains were biblical in scale, relentless and planet-altering. And when they finally slowed, when equilibrium was reached, the world had oceans. Every coastline, every wave, every deep trench beneath the sea, all began with rain. The ocean remembers its origins, and every drop that falls today is part of that same ancient cycle. Rain has a memory in ice cores. Scientists drill deep into glaciers and ice sheets, extracting cores that contain layers of snow and ice dating back thousands of years. Each layer preserves a record of ancient rain and snow, including air bubbles, dust, and chemical traces that tell stories of past climates. By studying these cores, we can reconstruct rainfall patterns from long before human records began. We can see when droughts occurred, when rains were abundant, how climate has shifted over millennia. Rain doesn't just fall and vanish. It leaves evidence, frozen in time, waiting to be read by those patient enough to look. Rain on a tin roof is a universal comfort. Across cultures and continents, people report feeling soothed by the sound of rain on a tin roof. There's something about that particular resonance, metallic but warm, loud but not harsh, that reaches into memory and emotion. Maybe it's the rhythm. Maybe it's the association with shelter, with being safe inside while water falls outside. Whatever the reason, the sound has become iconic, replicated in recordings, sought after for meditation and sleep. A tin roof in the rain is more than architecture. It's an instrument, playing a song that seems to speak directly to some deep part of human consciousness, a part that recognizes rain and shelter and the comfort of being held safely while the storm passes overhead. Rain makes time feel different. On rainy days, time seems to slow, to soften. The light is dimmer, the sky is grey, and the usual markers of the day, shadows, sunlight, blue sky, are absent. Minutes stretch, hours blend. Without the sun tracking across the sky, time becomes more internal, less measured, more felt. This temporal shift can be disorienting or deeply restful, depending on your mood. Rain removes urgency. It suggests patience. It says there's no rush, nowhere to go, nothing that can't wait. And in that suggestion, time loosens its grip, becomes less a taskmaster and more a companion, moving quietly beside you as rain taps at the window. The first rainfall after a drought is celebrated. When drought breaks, when rain finally returns after months or years, the response is almost always joy. People stand outside with arms raised. Children run and play in the water. Communities gather to watch and give thanks. The relief is palpable, collective, expressed in laughter and tears and quiet gratitude. These moments reveal how essential rain is, how deeply its absence is felt. Drought isn't just a lack of water, it's a kind of mourning, a waiting for something beloved to return. And when it does, when the first drops fall, the celebration is immediate and unrestrained. Rain, in those moments, isn't weather, it's salvation. Rain carries stories in folklore. Every culture has rain stories, why it rains, where it comes from, what it means. Dragons breathing mist, gods weeping, clouds as vessels carrying water from celestial rivers. Rain as punishment or blessing, or simply the turning of natural cycles. These stories aren't scientific, but they're true in another way. They express relationship, attention, wonder. They acknowledge that rain is mysterious, that it comes and goes by its own logic, and that humans, lacking control, create narratives to make sense of it. And in those narratives, rain becomes more than water. It becomes meaning, woven into the fabric of culture and identity. Rain will fall long after we're gone. Imagine Earth 1,000,000 years from now, after humans have vanished or evolved into something unrecognizable. Rain will still fall. Clouds will still form. Water will still cycle from ocean to sky to land. The planet doesn't need us for rain to continue. It's a process older and more fundamental than any species. This is humbling and comforting all at once. Rain doesn't depend on us. It will outlast cities, languages, everything we've built. And in that permanence, there's a kind of peace. The world has its rhythms, deep and enduring, and rain is one of them. We're lucky to witness it, to stand beneath it, to let it touch us. But it doesn't need our witness. It falls for itself, for the earth, for the endless cycle that has no beginning and no end, closing. And so we come to the end of our journey through rain, through its science and its poetry, its gentleness and its power. We've wandered together through storms and drizzles, through ancient rains and those yet to fall, listening to what water whispers as it returns to earth. Rain is everywhere and nowhere, common and miraculous, simple and infinitely complex. It falls on the just and unjust alike, asks nothing, gives everything. It shapes mountains and fills oceans. It feeds forests and breaks droughts. It connects every living thing in a web of dependence that stretches across the planet and back through time. Tonight, wherever you are, rain is falling somewhere. On tropical forests where it drums against broad leaves, on deserts where it vanishes before it lands, on cities where it runs in rivulets down glass and steel, on oceans where it merges with the water that birthed it. Rain never stops. It only pauses briefly before beginning again. Let yourself rest now. Let the sound of rain, real or imagined, wash over you. Let it carry away the weight you've been holding. Let it soften the edges of your thoughts. Rain asks nothing of you except to receive it, to let it fall, to let it nourish whatever is parched inside you. Your breathing is slow and deep. Your body is heavy and still, and like rain soaking into thirsty ground. You're sinking into rest, complete and undisturbed. Some of you may drift into sleep now. Others may continue into the next chapter. Either way, the rain will keep falling. The cycle will continue. And you, right here, right now, are part of that cycle. You are water mostly. You are rain returned temporarily to form and consciousness, before eventually returning again to the great cycle, the endless turning of water through the world. Thank you for walking with me through this gentle rain. Thank you for listening, for letting these small wonders settle over you like droplets on leaves. May your rest be deep and dreamless. May you wake refreshed, as the world wakes after rain, clean and soft and ready to begin again. Sleep well. The rain will watch over you. And tomorrow, when you wake, the world will still be here, turning through its ancient rhythms, rain falling somewhere, always falling, patient and endless and kind. Good night.